Greetings, respected viewers. Perhaps I should say shalom. Here I am in front of the statue of Raoul Wallenberg in London. It's right in front of Marble Arch Synagogue, because Marble Arch, well, is slightly out of shot. I might show that a bit later. So Raoul Wallenberg was a Swedish diplomat, and he's best known for having saved at least 100,000 Jewish people in the Second World War. So he was born in Sweden into an affluent family, and he entered the diplomatic service. He served in various postings. In the Second World War, Sweden chose to remain neutral. It was an invidious situation. Obviously, it's just across the sea from Germany, which was a major trading partner of theirs. They were heavily outnumbered by Germany. They were outnumbered by Germany about 7-1. Obviously, before long, Germany had conquered Denmark, and Denmark's only about a mile across the sea from Sweden at one point. And the Wehrmacht also occupied Norway and later on Finland. So they were surrounded by the Third Reich and its occupied territories. So their policy has been neutral for a long, long time. And because they've maintained their neutrality, they managed a very wealthy country, despite being more or less bereft of natural resources. Iron ore was one of the few things they had, and that was crucial to the German war economy. Now, had they not continued selling it to the Third Reich, very likely they would have been invaded, and it simply would have been plundered. Anyway, Wallenberg was posted to Budapest. Hungary was an Axis country, was fairly friendly with the Third Reich through the 1930s, and ruled by an Admiral Horthy. Horthy Miklos was fairly anti-Semitic. There were anti-Jewish laws at the time, but he didn't seem to contemplate genocide. He wanted to discriminate against Jewish people, not kill them. But there was the Arrow Cross Party in Hungary, which really was outright Nazi, and did want to annihilate the Hungarian Jewish population. Hungary had a very significant Jewish community, had done for centuries. They were about 10% of the population. In Budapest, rather higher than that. The Budapest Jewish community was mostly German-speaking, because remember, until 1918, Hungary is part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and obviously German was the primary language there, the most advantageous one to speak. And indeed, Theodor Herzl, the father of modern Zionism, was born in Hungary, just beside Dohany Street Synagogue, which still stands, the second largest synagogue in the world, the largest one outside the United States. Anyway, so Wallenberg was horrified by what was happening to Jewish people there, and then the Third Reich insisted that Horthy Miklos step up the anti-Semitic campaign, so he began to cooperate with the Third Reich. Heinrich Himmler, was Reichsführer SS, was insisting that Jewish people be arrested in Hungary, put on these cattle trucks, and sent to concentration camps, or indeed to extermination camps. Now, what's the difference? Okay, in a concentration camp, people are made to work very hard. They're given minimal clothing, even in winter. They're fed starvation rations. They're subject to random brutality, beatings by the guards, or having dogs sent them to savage them. And they live in very insanitary conditions in unheated huts, all the rest of it. They're seldom directly killed. People in concentration camps were killed indirectly. They died through a combination of overwork, malnutrition, beatings, exposure to the cold, lack of hygiene, things like that. Some of them were directly killed, like shot, but usually not. People were sent to an extermination camp, were usually killed within hours of arriving. So children, women with children, elderly people, anyone who's in any way physically disabled, was at all ill, would be sent straight to a gas chamber or occasionally shot dead. I've been to Sachsenhausen concentration camp. It was mainly a concentration camp. There was an extermination bit of it called Station Z, as in Z, last letter of the alphabet, because that's the end of the line. And people were brought in there into a small building, lined up, go into this room and get shot dead, and the body dumped at another one and another one. And in a very small room, over 100,000 people were killed at Sachsenhausen, because obviously this was going on over a few years. It was, hundreds a day. But anyway, the extermination camps were mostly in what's now Poland. Not blaming Poland for it, just they were located there because they were under German enemy occupation. Anyway, so Wallenberg said he must save these Jewish people, so he had access to blank Swedish passports, and Germany still wanted to maintain amicable relations with Sweden. By 1944, Germany had enough on its plate. It was being pushed back on all fronts. So they didn't want to upset the Swedes. So he would fill in the person's details and their photo and give it to them, and that was the person's passport. Black and white photos in those days. He could falsely say the person was born in Sweden, whatever was necessary. And there was no plastic sheet of the photo. You could easily take a genuine photo out and replace it with somebody else's. So he was giving them all these false passports. I know that's breaking the rules, but this is a matter of life and death. Would you break the rules to save an innocent person? Would you want somebody else to break the rules for you if your life was on the line? So it was absolutely morally justified to tell a few fibs just to save people. So some Hungarian Jews, they converted to Christianity hoping that they would be spared, but that this didn't work for them because the Nazis were racist. It was a matter of ethnicity, not of faith for them. Although there's a borderline case, somebody who was like a quarter Jewish, 3/4 Gentile. It depends if that person was belonged to the Jewish religious community, the person would be killed. If not, then they would be saved. So this is what Wallenberg was up to. Anyway, in October 1944, Admiral Horthy was overthrown, and Szalasi Ferenc became the ruler of Hungary, and he was the leader of the Arrow Cross Party. So he was a virulent Nazi. So he was a man more anti-Semitic even than Hitler. So Wallenberg, he'd issued something like 230,000 false passports. That didn't save everyone. Sometimes he heard that a transport train was at the station due to take people off to their deaths, and so he would hurry to Calais station or the other one and insist that people would be taken off the train. He didn't manage to save everybody. He declared loads of houses to be annexes of the Swedish embassy. So they were extraterritorial. The Hungarian authorities or the German army, the SS, had no right to enter them. The Swedish flag was prominently displayed, and usually that worked. Okay, the Germans did not want to have to fight yet another enemy. If they hacked off the Swedes too much, there's always a chance that Sweden would declare war on them. Anyway, Heinrich Himmler, he negotiated with the Allies secretly, saying if he was given 10,000 trucks, he would spare the lives of the Hungarian Jews. Now, the Allies were not going to help their enemy in wartime. Now, he didn't ask for tanks. They were not going to give him weapons. They might give him trucks, but, you know, transport's still important, getting troops and munitions around. The truck's obviously no good if you've got no fuel to put in them, and by late 1944, the Third Reich was almost out of fuel. Anyway, it didn't happen, but the Allies said, as a gesture of good faith, you have to release some Jewish people and send them to Switzerland, a neutral country, and the Swiss agreed to take them in, and that was done. It didn't work, as in, well, the Hungarian Jews weren't saved. A few people were saved. So that was that. So it's important to note the difference between a concentration camp and extermination camp. Though huge numbers of people died in concentration camps, they were seldom gassed or shot. In extermination camps, they were usually gassed, sometimes shot. And because people don't understand this and get them mixed up, then this gives an excuse to the Holocaust deniers. We'll say, oh, nobody was gassed in a concentration camp, and usually they're right. Okay, people died in concentration camps, but they were killed indirectly, not by gas, and usually not by shooting either. I've met a Holocaust survivor, so I feel, well, honoured to have heard that woman's harrowing testimony, a woman from Moldova who went through a horrific time but managed to survive. So the Red Army got to Hungary in 1944. January 1944, they took Budapest. The city was largely wrecked, and obviously almost no food left. And they helped themselves to the Hungarian treasure as well. So because Hungary had been an Axis country, it was sort of revanchism because of lost territory of the First World War. Ferenc Szalasi was fighting to the end. And indeed the very last Axis victory of the war was March 1945, just south of Lake Balaton in Hungary, where the Hungarian fascist troops managed to push the Red Army back a few kilometers, but obviously did not stem the flow of the Red Tide. So Wallenberg, he was arrested by the Red Army in January 1945. Because of Stalin's paranoia, they assumed that he was in contact with American intelligence. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that wouldn't be sufficient grounds to arrest him. After all, the United States was an ally of the Soviet Union and was sending them weapons and trucks and so on. So Wallenberg, he was sent to the Moscow-held Lubyanka prison, and nobody knows what happened to him. He's not alive now. He was only about 40 when he was arrested, but he just vanished, presumably killed. And the Soviet Union hasn't come clean about what happened to him. Some people who were in the Lubyanka prisoner recall hearing someone speaking Swedish, things like that, we don't know. Now look at this memorial, it's got all these sort of blank passports and whatever, Schutzpass, that's in protection pass, to indicate how he saved people's lives, like that. And there's an inscription around the base of the plinth here, and it mentions Soviet brutality. Some people won't like that. So that's that Raoul Wallenberg, who laid down his life to save others. Others were not his nationality, but he's renowned as a marvelous humanitarian. Humanitarians of many nationalities and ethnicities. There was an Irishman who saved some people. Oskar Schindler is a great example as well. See that Schindler's List, because the trouble about going on about the Holocaust is it might make people anti-German, and obviously racial prejudice in any direction is wrong. I don't want Germans to be mistreated, or Jewish people, or anyone to be mistreated on the basis of their ethnicity or faith. And so the Schindler story is a great one because it's telling the truth about the Holocaust, and the hero of it is ethnically German, who saved Jewish people, and that's absolutely the way it should be. There should be obviously amity between people of all ethnicities and nationalities. So that is Raoul Wallenberg.